Should be very proud of you.
We are on. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. It is 7:02. Welcome to the June 17th regular meeting of the Township Committee for Bedminster Township. I recognize that we have a full complement of Township Committee up here tonight. Ms. Sullivan, can we please have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News in Somerville and to the Bernardsville News in Whippany, to all subscribers, and then also posted here at the Municipal Building as of January 7th, 2019.
Great, thank you. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm sure most of you are here for the, let's see, resolution of the, renewal of liquor licenses? Liquor licenses, right? That's a good thing. All right, well, we'll get to that later in the meeting. Before we get there, we've got some things. We've got some regular business to run through. We'll run through it quickly, and we'll get to the JCP&L presentation very shortly. The first order of business for the Township Committee is approval of some minutes. We've got the May 20th and June 3rd regular sessions and closed sessions. Any comments or questions that have not otherwise been addressed so far?
Nope.
Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve those minutes of May 20 regular Township Committee, May 20 closed session, June 3 regular Township Committee, and the June 3 closed session?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Second?
That would be all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Next is permits and raffles. We have two. First is raffle license for Bedminster Charities Fall Fest. Event held on October 26, 2019 at 5:00 p.m. at River Road Park. That's an off-premise 50/50. And the second is social affair permit for Bedminster Charities Fall Fest event held on October 26, 2019 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at River Road Park. Any questions or comments? None. Can we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
You'll make that motion?
I'll make that.
All right, good.
Second?
Anybody get a second?
Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next is public comments. So public comments are for anyone from the public to make any comment on any matter that is not otherwise on tonight's agenda. Seeing as we got some folks here, this is an opportunity to come on up to that microphone right up here. There'll be two opportunities during the night. If you don't want to do it now, there'll be a second one coming up. Ms. Stevenson?
I would like to announce my name and everything, my address, Alexa.
Sure, that'd be great. Your name and address, please?
Susie Stevenson, Ski Hill Drive, wife of Jeff. I had the opportunity to come today to Town Hall with the 4th grade classes from Bedminster School for a presentation that was done by Judy Sullivan, Robin Wright, and Sean Blinn, and they did this whole presentation in conjunction with the 4th grade teachers about the history of Bedminster and Vanderveer House, and Judy showed all these really cool pictures and let the kids try to guess what it had been. And I just wanted to thank them for their efforts. The kids really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the presentation. The kids did this amazing website, which I shared with some of you. So I just wanted to recognize them publicly and say thank you.
Great, thank you.
How was our kid? Did he behave?
He was very lucky.
Are you also on Ski Hill Drive?
Oh, yes. I'm in the shed and she's in the house.
We will quickly do monthly report discussions by by subcommittee chair, and then we'll head to the JCP&L discussion. And so why don't we start off with Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I really have no update from last meeting. We've got an HPD meeting coming up on Thursday. The other stuff that I've been working on, the interim, will be discussed during exec session concerning some of the labor contracts we've been working through. Got a meeting with John Mans and Colin next week to go through some DPW issues. So more to come next week. And I guess the one thing that speak about publicly. Since last meeting, I attended with Gina the PBA's kickball event, and other than shredding my hamstring, it was a great day. Beat the PTO team, and then we took it on the chin for the rest of the time, but beating them was good enough, and we had a great time. It was a great event. It was in conjunction with the fall farmers market, so it was nice people could head over from the kickball event to the farmers market and back. A real nice event by PBA, and obviously the farmers market's going strong. Attended that last couple weeks. Great job for the farmers market committee and the folks that are heading that up. Great job.
Great. But you quickly mentioned DPW, so there were some emails that had gone back and forth about some of the road crossing. John, I remember we talked about doing a road crossing from River Road Park to get to the hiking bike extension?
Correct.
Any, you had a couple days of weather.
Few.
How much advance lead time do you need to get that going?
Mayor, right now, I am just swamped with projects at this point in time, and try to get caught up on things. It's not that it's not being done, it's on the radar, it just has to happen at this point in time.
And we've already determined that there's no DOT permits or other county permits that are needed for that crossing? Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take from the hike and bike trail and just kind of go to the left side if you're looking at the roadway going in. We'll put another small little trail up along the roadway, so it's not going up the roadway, it'll go, and then they can attach, so.
Okay.
It's a little bit of work, but it can happen.
I should also note, in the same regard to that, Renee and I will be going over to Hills Master North next Monday. I understand one of the topics of conversation there will be a discussion about an additional crosswalk on Robertson, so more to come on that.
Okay. Mr. Hickey.
Mayor, thank you. Good evening, all. Just a quick rec update. The volleyball courts at Pluckman Schoolhouse Park have been completed, and they are open and ready for play. They've been resanded, redone. They're in great shape, and kudos to John Mance and his crew for doing all that work, particularly given the weather, which has not been cooperative over the last month or so. So
Everything else is a mess, but that's not.
that is, we're good to go. Want to play volleyball? You're good to go. And Mayor, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Ms. Santucci?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief update on Fall Fest. AT&T, the liaison, was nice enough to get back to me. They'll be coming to our next meeting, and we're really excited to be, a big help with regard to the television screens, maybe football for Fall Fest. So we're excited. We're excited to have it.
That's great.
October
26th, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Will be coinciding with the farmers market, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Moreski?
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everybody. A quick update on Environmental Commission. Moth Night this year is June 28th at 8:30 at River Road Park. Any questions, ask Dawn March. There's going to be a bat night. The target date is in August, the actual date to be determined. John, do you have any information, because I'm a little behind on the EV charging stations? I know they've submitted the paperwork for the permits, but I don't know if it's gone.
I don't know where the permit is at this point in time, but they have not scheduled any work at this point in time, so.
Okay, I'll follow up with that. And one last thing, if anybody needs milkweed seeds or milkweed pods, Kathleen Palmer, our artist and butterfly expert from Bernardsville, has some that she'd love to give away. She has about 100 plants. So if anybody needs them, let me know and I'll get you hooked up with her. An update for the JBH Summer Soiree. They actually made $13,000 for their event. That's counting the ticket sales and the silent auction items, which was fabulous. And so we can look forward now to the 17th annual Colonial Christmas. The dates for that are November 30th and December 1st, and then December 7th and 8th. Committees are now being formed, so they're getting started. And that's all I have, because I did not get to the farmer's market this week.
All right.
Sorry.
Renee, on the milkweed plants from last year, did they survive?
I have no idea.
John, do you know?
I went once.
You haven't mowed them down yet?
I went out once to weed, and I got so bitten up by the mosquitoes.
All right, well, there's more milkweed plants coming.
Back because when I went to pick out those, or to weed out those, our natural milkweeds had already started to encroach already. So I'm sure we're good with milkweeds.
Good, great.
Again, Bedminster does all its own stuff.
Great. So just a quick update. There was no meeting of the Land Use Board since our last meeting. and we will see if there's some applications that do come in July, but right now there's nothing pending.
One was dropped off Friday,
Oh, one was, really? Oh, do you know which one?
Lamington Road project.
Okay, all right, well, that's certainly one that's going to get some attention. Farmers Market, some updates on the farmers market. We've been talking to the vendors. Vendors have reported that so far this season, some of them are having their best farmers market showings that they've ever had. And we got some really great compliments about the attentiveness of the volunteers. So I want to thank Renee and Colin, who have been two of our very active volunteers out there, as well as Robin Ray for coordinating all that. So once again, Farmers Market just appears to be doing very well. Sort of combined Farmers Market discussion with some comments I gave to the cancer support community. They did their butterfly release, and as is custom, the mayor gave a few comments, and I talked about bringing cancer support community a little closer to the Bedminster local community. They do great work throughout central Jersey, but perhaps what their mission is not necessarily clear to folks in town, and suggested that perhaps participation either at just having information at the farmers market, or if there was any displays or programs that they could run at the farmers market. And they actually said that they do a fair amount of nutrition programming. So they've got nutritionists and chefs on staff or at their ready who can come to the farmers market and work some, just as we talked about picking up local organic produce and incorporating that into a nutrition plan and doing a demonstration at the farmers market. So we will be having further discussions about them, and the next Farmers Market Committee meeting is tomorrow evening, and we'll continue there. There's something I'd asked Judy to do a couple, I guess about a week ago. So as we come to this third week in June, this is the anniversary of the African burying ground and the deed that was given to the 3 Africans from the property owner, commemorating or actually dedicating that 1/10 of an acre as a burial ground. In the past couple years, there's been an organization primarily run through the NAACP that holds a really terrific event at the property and commemorating the anniversary every year. Judy reached out with 2 different emails asking just to confirm that that you're on for this year, if there's anything we can do, mowing the lawn, anything we can provide from the township to make that event go smoother. We're on the ready, and also, this is a pretty busy week with 8th grade graduation, high school graduation, and a number of other events that are coming to town. So we want to make sure that we have folks available from the township to participate. Judy, have you heard anything yet?
So I did reach out with a couple of emails. I didn't get anything formally back. However, we did do a little research today. Actually, the chief was helpful. We went back, and the actual date on the deed is June 22nd, which would be this Saturday, if that's when they're going to commemorate.
Okay.
The other important date this week is June 19th, which is celebrated as Juneteenth, which is the date that slavery was abolished. So somewhere between June 19th and June 25th, but we're thinking it's the 22nd.
Okay, great. So Saturday, there's also a fair amount of activity going on that day.
Going on.
But, so the sooner we could get a confirmation from them, that'd be great.
If we do, I'll let you all know. John will have the property in good shape, but I don't have anything official.
Okay. And also just a reminder to folks, the Essex Horse Trials is coming up this Saturday and Sunday at the Moorland Farms property. Great event. Township has been actually in coordination with the horse trials. They've given us a number of free tickets, and if anyone wants to come out to the Essex Horse Trials, we still have some.
The ones I had, I gave you for the farmer's market, so Renee has some.
Oh, you've got some, great. So if anyone's looking for tickets to the Essex Horse Trials, Saturday and Sunday, please see Committeewoman Moreski. And with that, let's go on to our next topic, which is we're going to bring JCP&L up. So as you all know, back in the beginning of the year, there was a series of outages. I had reached out to our JCP&L rep to talk about the outages, what's been going on, and to give the folks from our community an opportunity to talk to JCP&L, and we had asked to make sure that JCP&L brought engineers with them. So most of you folks were out here in March, and since March there was I guess an ad hoc committee that was formed. This was the 4 J's, Jerry, Joan, Jeff, Jackie, right? Right, so the 4 J's have been coordinating with Committeeman Hickey and Committeewoman Moreski and with our JCP&L reps about work that could be done to make improvements and what the schedule would be, what issues were, comparing outage histories. And with that, Rob, do you want to take it over from here?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Everybody hear me okay? Anybody else want to move over to the right, to my right, your left, to see the screen better, or you all do fine? Okay. So, my name is Rob Walden. I am the manager of vegetation for Jersey Central Power and Light. I was promoted to that job in June of last year. And before that, I was the liaison to Bedminster Township. So I've been to governing body meetings probably half a dozen times in the year or two that I was the liaison to Bedminster Township. Before that was a man named John Anderson, a very tall gentleman. Some of you may have been in a meeting before and met John. I held on to both positions for about 6 months. In December of last year, I assumed my new position full-time. And Tom Haynes, who some of you met a few weeks ago, was here on behalf of the company to talk about the storm outages, and all of you came to talk about outages from the recent past. Tom, again, was an interim assignment for him, covering the towns until we found the best candidate. We found just that candidate in one of your neighbors, Mayor Bianchi from Berners Township. Carol is taking on the role full-time. So after I'm done, and after you've had your say, when we come back to talk about what we've discussed today, Carol will be here to give the updates moving forward. But I'm here tonight to walk you through what we're doing so far. So Bedminster Township, the Hills, is served by several substations. It is served out of the PPAC substation, out of the Chambers Brook substation, out of the Greater Crossroads substation, a little out of Somerset substation, and a little bit out of the Dead River substation. One of the issues to note here on this slide is the majority of residents in the Hills, and especially the ones who've had the reliability concerns, are generally served out of Greater Crossroads and PPAC substation. The challenge is there are 4 miles between those substations and your residents. 4 miles is a lot of exposure. Tree overhanging, animal contact, wire that can go bad, devices. So that contributes to the challenge of reliability in your neighborhood, is that distance from the substation to your homes. This is reliability for the folks that are served out of those substations on those circuits. A typical year, our customers experience about 1.1 outages. That's an average. So some customers experience 2, some experience 1, some experience 5 or 10, some experience none. But on average, it's about a little more than 1. And the average customer in our northern New Jersey territory is without power for about 134 minutes. That's 2 hours and 14 minutes. So you can see in some years, your folks are well below that average. In other years, you are well above that average. We obviously want everybody to be below that. We want our average to drive down. And this metric we use, which is called SAIDI, the average amount of interruptions, or average duration of interruptions, is one of the metrics we use to measure our reliability. We report to the BPU. We look at it every week. I get an email every week from our reliability engineers looking at that past week's interruption duration. We have a monthly reliability meeting. This is what drives the work we do at JCP&L, is this number, this metric, duration of outages.
Rob, will this presentation, will this be available for residents?
I've submitted it to the clerk. It's a public record, so yes.
We can put it on the website tomorrow.
We can put it on the website. So if you'd prefer, you can continue taking pictures, or you can just go to the Bedminster website and pick it up tomorrow.
I have a question. Is that the entire hills of Bedminster, or is that the section that most of us were concerned about?
You know the neighborhood better than I do, so you can tell from the street map there.
I can tell from that map.
But as I understand it, those are that serve the entire portion of the hills, everything that's called the hills. And if you want to go back to what I think are the parts that are most affected, I think it's PPAC.
Those connected to the
So that's PPAC, okay? And then the next portion here is Chambers Brook. And then the next one is Greater Crossroads. I think those are the three largest contributors to the overall reliability issues in the hills. I think that Somerset and Dead River are less of a contribution to those issues. And there's the reliability from each one of those areas. So I was very fortunate to be the liaison to the governing body in 2018 and 2017. And other than that, Somerset PPAC reliability was a little better. Going back before 14, the reliability was not as good. And obviously of late, we've had some pretty bad reliability from the storms earlier this year. So what do we do to address reliability? One thing that we've done on a lot of circuits, we've done it here on the PPAC substation circuit, Chambers Brook, as well as the Greater Crossroads, as well as Somerset, is add a recloser. And one of the complaints that was expressed at the last meeting was these minor interruptions, a minute or two of duration, where you have to reboot your computer, the microwave clock starts blinking. It's not an outage, but it sure is inconvenient. That is by design, and I'll explain. Normally, when a limb falls onto a wire, an animal makes contact with two wires and causes a short, the breaker fails open, you have an outage. You all call the 800 number, telling us that you're out of power. The crew, whatever they're working on, they close up that job, they drive to the scene, they inspect the line to make sure that nothing causing any damage, they find nothing, they close the breaker, and you're out of power for about 2 hours, okay? We have done on circuits that experience poor reliabilities, add reclosers. So instead of that breaker failing open and you having to call for an outage, it opens and waits a minute. And after a minute passes, it closes. And if the tree limb or the animal contact has fallen to the ground, the closed breaker stays closed and you're back in power. Probably barely enough time to get to the phone to make the call. If that limb or that animal contact or some other issue is still on the line, it'll open one more time in the hope that whatever's there clears the line. If after a minute it closes again and it's still there, it'll fail open and you'll have an outage. So you might experience that interruption and another interruption, and then maybe it'll stay off. That's the recloser working. And again, going back to that exposure issue of 4 miles of wire from the substation to your homes, lots of things can fall in the wires. And I'll explain our tree trimming standard a little bit, but what we try to do is eliminate that outage, that 2-hour event, and condense it to a minute. So again, I know that's an inconvenience. If you're working on your desktop computer, you lose everything you're doing, it's not auto-saved. You know, if you're cooking in the microwave, your dinner stops. If you're watching the big game and it's a big play, you might miss it. We get that it's not ideal, but it's a vast improvement over what the past issues were where you have a permanent outage, and it's driven down our reliability minutes. I'll comment more on those reclosers in a moment. What we do every day to prevent these things is another question that was asked. What are you doing to deal with these issues? We have a number of things that we do on a recurring basis to analyze all of our circuits, not just the ones that are performing badly. So each year, we do a visual inspection of our circuits. They have a reliability engineer who's out in the field, tries every linear mile, and looks for things that are amiss. We also do wood pole inspections once every 10 years. We inspect the pole, we do a test of the solidness of the wood, we bore around the base of the pole to make sure there's no rot underneath the pole. We do that every 10 years, as I said before. We also just did a wood pole inspection on every wood pole in our system because that was one of the edicts coming out of the marginal reister report. I'm sure many of you remember the marginal reisters from 2 years ago. I know I certainly do, having spent 14 days in a row working 16-hour days. That prompted the BPU to do an investigation of all the utilities, and out of that came a demand that every utility inspect all of its wood poles for loading issues. So not only do we do that every 10 years, but we just did that on all of our wood poles in our system. We also do infrared scanning, or thermography. So just like a volunteer firefighter has that thermal imaging camera they use in a home to look for hotspots, we use that same device to look for hotspots on our equipment. So there you see one of our crews looking through a thermal imaging camera. On top you see what is a hotspot. That white spot in the middle of that purple pole and wires is a hotspot. A hotspot tells us that device or wire is failing or likely to fail and needs to be replaced. We can schedule the replacement, make that repair, that replacement on our time without an interruption, or at least as small as interruption as possible before that fails. And again, we do this day in, day out on all of our equipment. Vegetation management. So again, you've got that PPAC substation, especially, I know it very well, I was the liaison at PPAC as well, has a lot of overhang, a lot of limbs. So there's a lot of things that can fall in our wire. We would a trimming once every 4 years. We go through every single circuit once every 4 years, 3,500 miles per year of trimming, and try to eliminate those hazards. The tree trimming standard in New Jersey is 15-foot radius around the wire. So if you see that top picture, you've got those limbs overhanging the wire. And look at that and say, well, that's horrible. Those limbs can fall in the wire, cause an outage, you should trim them. That's not the standard to trim those limbs. They stay. What we would prefer is at the bottom, no overhanging limbs. Now, in the first part of our circuit, the regulation from the BPU is to remove those overhanging limbs. That's because that first part of the circuit, if there's a limb that falls, everybody on that circuit goes out. So that's the standard. On zone 2, which is the second part of the circuit, which is three-phase power, we are removing overhang on our own. We went to the board, asked for a rider to our rates to be able to do that extra vegetation management and remove those overhanging limbs, what we call Reliability Plus, which is a program we'll talk about in a minute. So our goal is on many parts of our circuits to get to that second picture on the bottom, remove those overhanging limbs. But healthy trees that are right adjacent to our wires, if they're perfectly healthy, they don't get cut. We want to remove a hazard tree. We have to get permission from the property owner. So if you own a tree right outside the substation and we think you should have it removed and you say no, we can't take it. Now we have to report that to the board. There's a list that gets sent to the Board of Public Utilities every year. But in essence, we are at the mercy of property owners to remove trees from their property. Limbs, we can trim the 15-foot without their permission, but we need property owners' cooperation to take down hazardous trees. And looking at the outage history of many of the customers that were at the last meeting and left their addresses behind, half of the incidents of outages are trees. 66 to 75% of the time you lose is from trees. So trees is a big culprit for us in northern New Jersey. One of the other programs that the engineers use is the worst performing circuit program. So they look at the worst performing 8% of our circuits, based upon, again, that number of minutes you lose power during a year. They analyze that circuit to look for improvements. We do extra tree trimming. We make an extra effort to remove those hazard trees. All of that is based upon that worst performing circuit criteria. So your circuit, the PPAC circuit, made that criteria. It's one of the 8% of our worst performing circuits. That extra attention, we investigate that circuit. We do some of those routine maintenance things, again, to look for issues, and when we find them, we repair them. We also have a program called SEMI, Customers Experiencing Multiple Interruptions, and SEMI, C-E-M-I. And that is to capture folks who are out of power 10 times in a week, 5 times in a month, things like that. If you're out of power 2 or 3 times in a 6-month period, you don't get captured in that. That might be that recloser working. But any customer who's in that tight frame of several outages in a short duration of time, we capture that and we address those issues. No one on this circuit made that cut. That doesn't mean your reliability is good, it just means you weren't bad in that category.
Rob, just
Yes.
a second. Can you
Sure.
juxtapose, okay, you talked about reclosers before.
Yes.
How far down the network are they in terms of the last mile versus the tree trimming? Because if you only have limited access to trim the trees, are you putting reclosers closer to the customer point of service so that they don't experience as many outages?
Reclosers are generally on the 3-phase, so that is on zone 1 and zone 2.
You got to explain that.
So, sure. So, remember, coming out of this, so the short answer is closer to the substation, not down the line a lot, okay? There is a lot, and I'll show a slide later that'll show you where the 3-phase is on these circuits, because we're doing extra trimming in those circuits as well. But this is, I was going to cover this a little later, but since you asked, the reclosers is a first step in an automated smart grid. So people ask, why do we have to call them our app? It's 2019, I can get any movie I want to on demand, why can't you know when our power is out? And that's a fair question. New Jersey is one of the last states to move over to smart meters. It is something that we are moving towards in the not too distant future, in large part because of this governor's aggressive agenda on removing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing our use of electricity. All of this ties into the need to have more ability to read the voltage that we use. So smart meters are coming. The problem with the smart meter is I just can't pull out your meter, put it in a smart meter, and it works. There's got to be a communication backbone along with it. That communication backbone requires additional reclosers, additional communication devices. So right now, to address reliability issues, we put those reclosers closer to the substation to deal with those issues from tree-related outages and things of that sort. But in the future, there's more of that to come. It's not immediately, it's not in the next 6 months, it's years, not weeks, but that's the grand plan that we're moving towards as a utility and every utility in the state. So that's something that's coming down the road, and you'll see more reclosers added to that. And we'll actually, there's one recloser we're adding, or I should say upgrading, that I'll show in a moment. So again, this is the year in which we're doing the inspection on those circuits. I wouldn't expect you to be able to discern this now because you've got the circuit list somewhere else in the list here, but if you get the presentation from the clerk or from the website, you'll be able to see when your circuit is being thermographied, trimmed, and we're doing the overhead inspections as well. So Reliability Plus, the Board of Public Utilities in December of 2017 created a program called IIP, Infrastructure Improvement Program. And the goal was to incentivize utilities, not just electric utilities, not just JCP&L, but water, sewer, gas, phone, to invest money in infrastructure. And what they're doing is allowing us to recoup that cost on an accelerated basis. So if I spend $1 now, instead of taking 10 years or 20 years to recoup that, I get to recoup it in 4. So we jumped on that and asked the BPU for a $400 million reliability package of programs and improvements to do just the kind of things you guys want, which is improve reliability. The board approved this for $97 million. Half of that, about $44 million, is extra tree trimming. So one of the projects in that Reliability Plus program is to change that recloser to a SCADA recloser. SCADA is a fancy word for a communicating recloser. So right now when that recloser activates, we don't know that it activates. You know, because you lose power from it, but we don't. Adding a SCADA to that recloser, we will now know that that recloser is activated. We'll know that you lost power from it. We'll know if it came back on after a minute. We'll also know if it failed off and you're out of power. And eventually, the goal is to get these reclosers tied together, have a smart system where we instantaneously know when you're out of power. All of this is a long time down the road, but the SCADA recloser here is sort of that first step in that process. Removing of overhang. Again, we talked about exposure and the overhanging limbs. So our goal is, as part of this reliability program, to remove overhanging limbs on Zone 3. So there you see, so there's the substation, and this stretch here is called Zone 1. That's the stretch from the substation to the first circuit breaker. All of this is Zone 2. It's all three-phase wire, all primary voltage, high voltage wire on top of the pole. And right now, limbs that overhang those wires stay. We're going to remove those overhanging limbs. We have ground to sky clearance to remove those exposures that can cause those temporary interruptions, and if the limb is severe and heavy enough, to cause an outage. So we're doing that in the PPAC substation this year, if not this year, certainly early next year. We're also doing that out of the Somerset, that's the Dead River substation. We got the Dead River Somerset substation. Same process, removing that overhanging limb. There you can see one of the streets, you can see the wires and the trees overhanging, that will be removed. We're also doing it out of, what is this? This is Dead River. So Dead River getting the same treatment. So again, Dead River, there's the substation, there's a breaker right outside the substation, so most of that circuit is Zone 2. So all of the exposure will get the limbs removed. The limbs removed not only helps with tree-related outages, but when the squirrels don't have a limb to jump off onto the wire, it helps with animal outages. And yes, animal outages are an issue. So those are the packages that we're doing as part of that Reliability Plus program.
And when do you anticipate, for the circuits you mentioned, with Greater Crossroads, Peak Black, and the Chambers Brook, when will that all be done by?
Well, since I'm already trees, we're going to get started on it tomorrow. The short answer is this year.
Okay.
This year. It's a 19-month program, so the circuits that aren't scheduled this year will move up, but we'll get on this right away. Route 287 project, we have gotten approval from all the stakeholders. We're waiting on DOT approval. The mayor offered his help in getting the DOT to move that application along. We may have gotten a verbal today, I did not hear, but we're hopeful to get that project on the road and get that thing done very shortly, within the next month or so. Again, a truck clipped communication wires, pulled on the poles, and affected the reliability of that riser pole and those circuits. We need to replace that pole, replace that riser pole, and those wires go underground and serve underground customers serve into the hills. So right now, we are in a not advantageous position. We have switched some customers from Chambers Brook onto PPAC because of this issue. Once this is resolved, we'll switch those folks back. We'll be back to our normal grid layout. We also made repairs to the switches and put in a new switch and transformer at the daycare center. We'll show some of those improvements. But one thing that I want to touch on this is these things look horrible, right? You have them in your neighborhood, they've been there for 20, 30 years, they don't look pretty. But these are not the cause of your problems. And if they were, we would have replaced them long ago. They just don't look good. And certainly there's exposure there, you can get animal in there, you can get some sort of animal contact, so we need to address it. But it's not the cause of the reliability issues you've been experiencing, but we need to address those nonetheless. So there you see the patch we put on, doesn't look very pretty, but it's safe. Same thing there, there's the hole, there's the patch, not very pretty, but it's much more reliable now. This is a switch before we replace it. That's the brand new switch before the grass has grown. Much prettier appearance. I think that looks gorgeous, but I work for the utilities, what can I say? And there's the new transformer outside the daycare center. And this is a good example of some of the challenges we have with making reliability improvements. So we need to fix the switch. Well, the switch, before we could fix the switch, we had to fix the transformer. We couldn't just go and switch the transformer without coordinating with the daycare center. So the daycare center needs to have power when the kids are there. So all of these things work against us at times to make the reliability improvements we want to do, but eventually we get it done. It just sometimes takes some time. The other issue with the aesthetics of these things is we get this doesn't look very pretty. But if I'm the line shop manager who works in plumbing that covers your area, and I've got 4 hours to spare, am I going to use it to make that look pretty, or am I going to use it to put in a new circuit breaker, put in a new recloser, change out the wire on a circuit? Those are the kind of choices we have to make. And I know that you folks want us to do things for your neighborhood. We have other neighborhoods that want us to do things for their neighborhood. We have to try to look at using our resources to improve reliability for our customers, and sometimes that means these aesthetic things wait. That's not good, we need to get on these, but that's why these things are not something that we put at the top of our list. Another issue that the mayor asked us to address was the clearances around these pad mount transformers. We have that brand new gorgeous pad mount transformer. I hope nobody goes out there and plants trees too close to it, but if you want to, please keep 3-foot clearance on the sides and the back, and then a minimum of 10-foot clearance to the front. We have to get into the front of that with open the door, and they don't use their hands, they use a pole. They have to stand back and pull that breaker open because there could be a flash. We've had too many incidents, so that's why we do it remotely. So if you want to make your pad mounts prettier, please make sure you keep those clearances in mind. That I'll happy to take any questions.
But for the questions, if, Rob, if you guys can switch over to the mic at the table, and I would ask for anyone who's going to ask questions to come up, give your name and address, and stand in line, give your comments. This is not a shy group, I know that.
Mayor, if I could just start off with saying that I'm up on Ski Hill, so I'm clearly off the PPAC substation, and you guys come through, done a lot of trimming, and I will tell you that the quality of service has been tremendous. It's been much, much better. The outages have been almost non-existent, so I don't know if it was you or your successor, I laid into him pretty good about the manner in which the cutting was done. It was kind of a hatchet job, but effective, and it's completely worked. So, you know, vegetation will grow back and all that stuff, but could you just speak to what the requirements are for the folks that are cutting in terms of cleaning up behind them?
Sure. This is always a challenging topic for us. We are required to remove the brush. So anything less than 5 inches diameter, we put into a chipper and we cart the chips away. We try to encourage the customer to accept the large wood. Where I live out in Hunterdon County, that's a valuable commodity. That's firewood for the winter. In downtown city of Summit, that's litter. I think in Bedminster, somewhere in between, depends on who you talk to. So if the customer wants us to remove all the wood, we are required to remove all the wood. If the customer is willing to accept the large wood, we leave it behind in manageable stacks. Manageable becomes a word that people argue over sometimes. But that's our preference, to leave it behind, because obviously there's a great cost incurred to remove all that wood. But if the customer demands it and we really want to get that tree down, we'll remove the large wood. As to the cutting standards, we don't, I hope we did not hack these trees as you described. I hope we cut them.
No, it wasn't you. Nelson, I think it's your subcontractor. It was them, and there was the individual, you know, who got frontage to 206 was very upset because they went straight up, and you know, it's like getting a bad haircut, right?
Yes.
So she was upset about it. I saw it was, you know, it was cut back, but again, you know, the service has been great. It's been much improved. So in an atmosphere, I'm sure you get a lot of complaints. I want to make sure you know that that effort, at least I've noticed as a resident, has been a big improvement.
Thank you, Committee. I appreciate that.
Rob, Carol, first off, thank you for coming out and giving us an update, and hopefully this will be one of many going forward, so we can be kept apprised of kind of additional progress, additional, you know, what you're out there doing. Question for you on the crossing over 287, the ramp. I know that's a single point of failure, and that's a critical item. When is that going to be completed based on, assuming you've gotten approval today, when is that going to be done? And are there any other single points of failure serving our customers here in Bedminster that need to be addressed?
The short answer to the first one is within the next several weeks. As soon as we get DOT permission, we'll go on the schedule and we'll get done. I know it's something that we're all anxious to have completed because of especially with loading coming up with summer months, having customers switch from one circuit to another changes the load of those circuits, so we want to avoid those circumstances, so we have an incentive on our own to get it done as well as what our customers want. So I would say the next several weeks. I don't have an exact date for you, but Carol will certainly dig into that and get back to you. As to other points of single failure, there are other points of exposure out there. None are like this that have an issue that need to be repaired immediately, but everywhere you've got a tie point between two circuits, and there are several in the area. Anytime two circuits come together, we generally try to put a tie point. That is an exposure that could fail, especially when you put it next to a busy highway. When you put it in a commercial or heavily traveled area, that's an issue. And that's part of the challenge we deal with is it costs $3 million a mile to bury the wires. So they're going to stay on the poles for a good long time. And that's what we concern ourselves with. But nothing that needs immediate repair, but there certainly are places out there that could get damaged.
When that repair is actually affected, will there be a planned outage?
I don't know if that requires a planned outage or not. If we do, we would make a call to our customers to tell them that you'll be losing power from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on this day. We usually try to call a couple days beforehand and let them know. I know Carol can certainly make sure the clerk and that Judy, the administrator, knows that we're going to be doing that, so you can post it on your website. But yeah, we do provide advance warning to our customers when we do that.
Well, it just seems, based upon the that distribution map, that single point is the P-PAC line coming down 206, and you're not going to get coverage from the other lines, certainly for, I guess, really the lower part of the hills.
Well, right now, nobody's being fed off of that pole because we switched circuits around to avoid having to go through that pole.
That pole's not an active pole right now?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
So once they make the repair, they would switch people back. So you might see a momentary switch. I don't think we need to do an outage, but I can't confirm that. We'll certainly let you know.
Larry, don't go climbing the pole and playing with it.
No testing? No testing with the long stick?
Stick to the law.
If we could have you up at the microphone, please. And name and address.
Rich Costa, High Pond, Lane 53, High Pond. Is this going to affect access to Route 287 when you go to bury the lines?
We go to bury the lines. We're not burying any lines as part of this repair. The lines already go underneath the pole into the ground. We need to fix the riser pole at the pole. We don't need to fix anything that's beyond where the riser goes into the ground.
So we're not putting that, we're not burying that?
That pole is the point at which the wires go into the ground and under into the development. So the damage, as I understand it, is on the pole itself. So we need to put in a new pole, replace the conduit on the side of the pole with a new conduit and new wire, and make the connection where it goes underground. So we don't need to dig up the highway or anything like that. The wire's already there. We may have to close a lane for safety, but no, that should be the extent of what we need to do.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
So my understanding is that where it goes under the ground is at the bridge, at the overpass itself. So it's not being buried on the north side of the ramp. It gets buried on the south side of the ramp, but the two poles on their side of the ramp, that's the problem.
Got it.
So they're not going away, the two poles?
No, sadly, they're...
And I know you're going to have more questions than that, so you might as well.
And Rob, just part of that is, I understand you're also moving the pole so it's less exposed to get the wire up higher, is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
That's good, yeah, I think I've heard that. I'm Joan Robbins for Wood Duck Pond Road.
One of the J's.
Yeah, that's right. So, I don't know, I always smile when I hear about squirrels because the hills is filled with squirrels. But if I'm pinging other neighbors in various sections of the hills, they're not having this reclosure issue. So why would it be more endemic to my area of the hills?
Without knowing the addresses and where you are on the circuit map, customers are fed differently depending on where you are in the hills. So if you're at the P-PAC station where we have two reclosers, you will probably have more of those minor interruptions than customers who are not on the P-PAC circuits. If you're on the greater crossroads, if you're out of the Dead River, especially the Dead River, there is no recloser. You're not going to have that issue. That would be the reason why you would experience it and others would not.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the P-PAC substation too, because about maybe 5 years ago, I spoke to Mike Terpstra, who I understand is out of Flemington.
Mike Terpstra is a line supervisor who works in Flemington and Washington, yes.
Well, I don't know, for some reason I had opened up a reliability claim and they put me in touch with him. And he had said the issue at that time when I spoke with him was that PPAC station. So are there any plans, or could there be any plans to move us off of that?
The short answer is no. Whatever issue was, there was an issue at PPAC at a time. That issue has been repaired and resolved. That doesn't mean that you're never going to have an outage again, but the issue that was occurring at the time was fixed and resolved.
And about when was that?
Within the 6 months
6 months ago?
No, within the 6 months after the incident appeared.
Oh, okay, so that's not the root cause?
No.
Okay.
No.
So was there for our area a root cause, or was it any one of the things you're fixing and you're going to fix?
The short answer is no, and that's frustrating for us because we'd love to be able to pinpoint the one device, the one pole, and just fix that and say, okay, everything's fine now. It is lots of little things. It is the trees. It is the occasional squirrel outage. It is occasional underground faults with the wire underground in the village. It is occasional device failures. There's no one thing that we could point to and say, okay, once we fix that, everything will be fine. We wish there were that. That would make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not the case.
That's the big mystery, because, as I said, I've got friends all over the hills, and I text them, and they're like, nope, only you lost power.
Yeah, and if you go back to that map, this is, I don't know, I'm not sure who designed this back in 1982. I was 10 years old, so I can't, I know it's not me. I'd love to say I wasn't even born yet, but that's not the case. There is 5 different subs serving that area, so you could have somebody who is on that PPAC circuit, as you say you are, and you could call a neighbor who is on Greater Crossroads or Chambersbrook, and they could be, just around the corner, and they might have that issue. And then you go to Somerset, which literally there are folks in Somerset are right across the street from folks in PPAC and aren't going to have that issue. The other thing with an underground fault, there's an underground fault on one phase. Remember, electricity has 3 phases, A, B, and C. And you might be fed off of phase A from a transformer. A might be fed off of phase B. And you could have a power outage and they might not.
So, neighbors like outside of that square box, the neighbors that aren't having the same issue as we have, is there a way we can be on their substations instead of what we're on?
Well, right now, for example, some folks are on Chambersbrook that used to be on PPAC. That is because of that issue with the pole. We can look at changing the load around. Typically, the circuits are designed to balance the load, and we try to keep that balance to ensure that we have improved reliability, don't have brownouts, things of that sort. So we can certainly look at that, but I won't promise you that we're going to move from one to the other, and it may not make a difference. That's the other thing,
Rob, the line from the PPAC substation, the
Yes.
one that's been rerouted, that incident was, was that late February?
Yeah.
So it was late February. Has the rerouting been in place since that time?
Yes, the rerouting was done to restore folks following that incident.
So Joan, if since that time, High Pond, and I imagine some of the other
And
hills,
that's Wood Duck,
hills,
right next to High
right.
Pond.
So that's right, Wood Duck. Have you experienced anything different?
Not since the 3-hour outage earlier, like in the middle of the winter, I'd say.
Okay.
This year's winter. I have seen the reclosure issue, but,
So the reclosure issue being a 1-minute outage, a
Right,
2-minute
right.
outage?
Yeah, I was surprised that JCP&L would not be aware of that, if I heard you correctly, so that's why we call.
Yeah, and you should call, certainly, but you should call. If it's once every 3 months, that's not good, but that's not something that we're going to fix. If it's once every 3 days, that's an issue, and we need to know about it, we need to come out and do something, and we would not know about it. That's part of the reason why we added the SCADA, the communication, to that other recloser. Eventually, we will build a system where we know about it.
Right, but we need to call every time, because we don't know 3 months down the road.
Fair enough.
If it happened 15 times, why didn't I
Yep.
call each
Nope,
time?
fair enough.
In hindsight. about?
I took a look at this, some of, the mayor worked with me just to identify them, so I could dig in and see what was going on. And yes, so the momentaries aren't recorded in here unless you notified us. So there's another section that tells us what notifications came in. And so to Rob's point, you do have to call those momentaries in because otherwise they're not in our records.
Right, and pretty much, not everybody's home, I work at home frequently.
Right.
So I'm calling them in, but if only 4 Wood Duck Pond Road called it in, it doesn't mean only 4 Wood Duck Pond.
Understood, right.
Okay.
Now, does this also get to a question, and I'm going to sort of pick on Dawn March because that's what happens when she shows up. You are, but I know you're here. So the distinction between Hills North and Hills Village. So the incidents that Joan is talking about, are you experiencing that with the same frequency over at Hills Village?
There you go, there's a hint that my area's got more reports.
I think I had brought up last time, our biggest issue is, it ended up being that transformer down by King's Supermarket. And it would be water buildup after the rain, so you get this beautiful sunny day, and they're like, why is the power out? And once they took care of that and fixed it, which was quite a few years ago, we've been blessed.
To answer that, I spoke with former Councilman Bernie Payne about that, and he told me about that situation, and there seems to be no issues now that was fixed. So I'm glad to hear that's the case.
And once in a while, I'll see the microwave blinking, but literally maybe every 2 months, 3 months. Yeah, it's very infrequent.
And if, again, going back to that exposure issue, if I were to look at this map and say, all right, who's got the worst reliability, without knowing anything about the substation, without knowing anything about customer outage history, I would guess PPAC. Just looking at that long distance from the substation to your home, that is a lot of exposure. I live 7 miles from a substation. I've got a lot of exposures, so I know what it's like. So that's...
So feel free to move other people onto that so we can come up.
Will do.
And,
Will do.
it may be interesting, she might be the best person to just identify the different neighborhoods for Rob to see where Wood Duck is in relation to some of the other, you can do it, Chief, you can do it.
It's your worst nightmare. It's like pin the tail on the donkey.
All right.
Just point to the box.
To me, this is 78 interchange, right? Yeah. Coming up here, this is 202, 206 on the break off. Like right over in this area would be Birchwood.
Yep.
Then, further in this vicinity here is your Wood Duck and your High Pond over here.
It's PPAC.
So that's the
That's what I see
PPAC,
from this map.
that's the PPAC line, but as Gary, yes, you have to come on.
You may take your place.
That's 4 hours.
So, but the neighborhood behind you,
Is Long Meadow.
Long Meadow. And Long Meadow,
Long Meadow's
as your wife and this Gary Johnson from Oak Knoll, so as Karna had pointed out, there are many times when Wood Duck and Oak Knoll
Right.
was out and Long Meadow still had power.
Like after Sandy, Long Meadow was up like 5 days before we were. And I don't know why, the last meeting we talked a lot about switching circuits. I don't know why that switchover didn't occur.
Well, during Superstorm Sandy, the switchover didn't occur because we had 1 million customers out, and we were addressing the largest and smallest, and
that's why I got
so
to
that,
the
yeah.
point where you look at the JCPL grid, you see there was power. And the problem with the PPAC substation is services a few amount of people, so it'll never get addressed. So that's the other problem.
Well, that's not true. We address issues, we address reliability problems, we address outages, but as far as in a storm situation where you have 25 customers versus 500, yes, the 25 are going to wait until the 500 are back, unless you're next to a hospital or a school, in which case you're at the top of the list.
But how long did it take to switch the circuit over from that over to the other one?
It probably would have taken maybe an hour, but that hour is now we're not spending fixing an outage of 1,000 customers, 500 customers, not 800 customers, so that's why we don't do those things. We address the largest number of customers down to the smallest, and if I didn't, there'd be
But you sense
hectic.
frustration with it.
Oh, absolutely, believe me, I do. I was out of power for 14 days during Sandy. I was the director of the Board of Chosen Freeholders in Hunterdon County during Sandy and yelled at my area manager often, so believe me, I get it.
So I guess one of the questions I have is that once you get into the hills itself, the utilities are below ground. So I'm still trying to wrestle with the concept of Long Meadow not experiencing the outages that Wood Duck and Oak Knoll are experiencing.
Sure, so, going back to the full map with all this, so whoever designed this layout, when these transformers were installed, connected to the closest overhead circuit to those areas. So you look at where the wire went underground into that area, one probably started where Dead River protrudes into that area, one connected to where Somerset Substation. This was someone's design 30 years ago to do it this way. And I agree, it may not make the most sense now, and if you were to do it over, you'd probably do it differently, but you have to put yourselves in the shoes of the people who were there at the time, the load that was there at the time, the access that was there at the time, where they were making the connections, and this is what we've inherited. So we can debate about the wisdom of that from 30 years ago, but again, this is sort of where we are, and we have to deal with it where we are moving forward.
Well, I'm just saying that if there are tree branches or animal incidents that are driving it along the P-PAC line, that should all be upstream of these different neighborhoods, because at that point, they're all below grade.
But the power's coming through that to get there. The power has to get through that tree-related outage to get to these folks underground.
Right, but it seems that some of those, once you're below grade, if the power is coming, and maybe I'm turning to someone who's got an electrical engineering degree, so that once the power's out or the incident is upstream, does it really make a difference where the dead lines are below grade? Because at that point, they're all dead at that.
Correct.
But that's why I'm still trying to wrestle with the concept of Wood Duck being a worse performer than its neighboring associations if at that point everything is below grade.
Because the below grade wire comes from somewhere, and that's what drives it, is where it comes from. So the below grade wire in the young lady's home comes from a different area than the wire comes from the gentleman's home. They start somewhere differently.
So P-PAC doesn't necessarily feed, and I'm going to ask.
It only feeds that handful of roads that you see there.
Meadow is being.
It's only the purple area, so if you put the next station, you'll see another area of the hills goes purple.
Okay.
Can you look through that one by one?
Yeah, exactly, right.
And then lights up. See, that's Chambers, and that's all the upper hills there.
But it's not just the upper hills, that would also look like it captures Long Meadow.
And it's going through the P-PAC substation line.
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
Back up, that's P-PAC right there. So it's only handling a little bit in the hills. And then the next one, well, you'll see that's the next
It
one.
looks like it goes right through it
I
to me.
think the issue question is that there are people outside of the hills that are getting affected, but it's probably sold out houses in the next town over P-PAC that are also getting outage. Because they're getting hit straight from P-PAC into the hills. Into Oak Knoll.
So then somewhere between Ski Hill and 287, right?
Yeah, but that's only that right there, you're looking solely at the P-PAC substation grid.
Right, but
It's only touching the hills in a very small
But of
area.
all the neighborhoods in the hills, that area is experiencing the worst performance.
Correct. And P-PAC is one of our 8% worst performing circuits, which we testified to.
Jerry?
Hello, everybody.
Name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, 512 Court, in the area that gets the worst service, with.com.
Okay.
So I've been living here about 15 years. In 2013, I started communicating with JCP&L in the form of a letter, which I sent a copy to Colin. And 15 years ago, we really didn't have problems that I was aware of. The last 6 or 7 years, really, really bad. And like the mayor is trying to point out, why is Wood Duck Pond one of the three that is consistently a problem? And I have heard every excuse imaginable. And at the most recent meeting that we had, where we are the committee of the J's, as you said, I think it did take us getting together to finally get some action on the part of JCP&L. Tom Haynes, nice guy, clearly isn't here today for a reason. I guess he wasn't representing properly. But even a couple of weeks ago, he told us there was no preventative maintenance program at all, and you're presenting that there is. So I feel like it's great that you're here, you're doing an amazing job, but it's like one end to the other. So where are we? And what is going to be the time frame, instead of saying eventually that these SCADA things are going to be fixed? Like really, what's the time frame for everything getting done so that we don't feel like we have PTSD every time the lights go out?
A couple things. Tom Haynes is one of our best customer service representatives. He handles our BPU complaints and executive complaints. So the reason Tom is not here is because 3 is a crowd. All right, that's the only reason.
But your presentation is amazing compared to his.
Well,
and you're the first person that gave us information that makes, I think, a little hope.
If I may, in fairness to Tom, Tom came to the meeting expecting to address a small storm. He did not expect there to be a room full of you good people complaining about 5 or 10 years worth of outage history. So had Tom known that was what he was walking into, he would have been prepared and would have given a very similar presentation, but that didn't happen. Now that's okay, that's neither here nor there, but that's why Tom may not have appeared to be prepared or have spoken well of what we're doing for the Hills. It is not Tom's failure. And again, Tom is one of our best customer service representatives. So Tom is a good guy, and he's not here because, again, he was an interim position, and Carol's the permanent replacement. 2, I would have a hard time believing Tom said there's no regular maintenance on our system, because Tom has been with the company for 20-some years, regularly talks to customers about the maintenance programs we do. So I don't dispute that that's what you heard. I'm just not so sure that's what Tom said. As to the time frame for all of these things, I don't know, and I can't give you a time because these things are in discussions at the state, with the governor, with the BPU. These are long-term plans and projections, not something that is in the next 6 months or a year as far as upgrades to our system. What is in the very near future are the tree trimming improvements we discussed, the SCADA control on the recloser that I discussed. What is in our immediate future is repair in 287, and what is constant is the monitoring of reliability of our customers and addressing those things as they pop up.
Which looking to the PPAC issue?
Yes, I will have our engineers look at loading and see if there's some merit to switching folks from one sub to another. We will ask. Not a problem.
And on the topic of the reclosers, where...
Mayor Bianchi.
Yeah. You mentioned that that does not get recorded on the paperwork that you receive. So I think that the town and anybody that's affected needs to be educated to call JCP&L, even if it's just a flicker of a light. Because people, they post it on Facebook, their lights go out. That doesn't help anybody. So I think if you're going to have an accurate, first of all, you should have a more smart meter friendly stuff.
Right. We want that.
Because of the way the world is. But if you don't, I think that people in town should be more educated on knowing, don't wait for your neighbor to call. You need to make the phone call.
Jim, I'm going to throw another J out there. Judy Sullivan. Judy has been talking about making sure that folks know when there's an outage, even a small one, to call. We talked about, as soon as we upgraded our website, that was one of the things we put on the website. If there's an outage, call. Please call, because every one of us up here and folks who had sit in these chairs before has had that same issue with outages, and we have to let JCP&L know, and the hotline is right up on our website for those who may not know how to get to it. Hopefully you know how to get to the Bedminster website, and you can get that information right there to make those calls.
You can even text it to us.
Online too, as well,
And
right?
report online.
You can report online, you can text it to us. The app is defunct. So, yeah, sadly, I like the app too, but the app is no longer, but you can text the address to us. For millennials who don't want to call and speak to someone on the phone, you can text it, and you can always go onto the mobile website and report it as well. But yes, good advice. We agree. Everyone should call their outage every single time. And we agree we should get to a point where we have that communication and know this stuff instantaneously. We agree.
And I do think that we are seeing certain things that are getting better, so I'm not, coming down on JCP&L. I also do believe, I appreciate everybody that's here, the mayor and Colin working on this, because I don't think anything would have happened if we didn't bring it to the attention of JCP&L. And I don't exactly know why it wasn't working, but I'm hoping moving forward it gets better, because it's going to, besides the stress, and like somebody else brought up about Superstorm Sandy, 5 days difference, I understand it was an extreme situation. Those things just can't happen, because besides the stress on us as residents, it also will impact the community, the cost of our houses. If this kind of word gets out, it's very problematic. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I hope it gets better.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Actually, Jerry, can I just add something before you finish? Before Hurricane Sandy, we did not, I don't recall issues like this.
Not to this degree.
Not to this extent. So I don't know if there's some way to trace back some of the repair work that may have been done following Hurricane Sandy, but maybe, in trying to pinpoint the root cause of the issue, it seems to me that's where it stemmed from, Hurricane Sandy. And living in Wood Duck Pond, being a neighbor of Jerry's, our units are built on a slab. We don't have a basement. So when we have power outages in February, the places are, they're not very well insulated, and being on a frozen slab, the inside of the place gets cold very fast. So what happens is we frequently have neighbors whose pipes freeze, and once they freeze, they burst. And the cost of that type of repair it's outrageous.
Sure.
So, our biggest concern is when we lose power in the wintertime, our power is electric. So, we don't have the luxury of propane, gas, or something else. We're relying completely on electric, and when that power goes down for an extended period, our places are susceptible to extensive damage if we experience a burst of ice.
Also bad news generators. So you can't have it in the concrete.
In the back, coming up.
Andrew Beck, 134 Cortlandt Lane, Bedminster. We have a lot of frequent power outages, and I was wondering what line are we on that would cause, because the EDC goes out too when we have a power outage.
EDC.
Back line, or
Where are you?
Cortlandt is facing 202, 206 going up. They're west of Birchwood.
Probably Greater Crossroads, that would be my guess. Is that, am I highlighting you there?
Yeah, because that's
Okay.
the EDC substation.
Okay. EDC substation, okay. I would guess you're a Greater Crossroads substation.
Crossroads, okay.
Yep.
We did have heated steps, we did remove those. So we took care of that issue.
Okay.
That's what I was wondering, if we do have another blackout, during the winter time, can we have a generator truck that we can hook up power lines to as a backup?
Andrew, excuse me, can you just speak into the microphone because we're having a...
Yes, when we have power outages, the company, the EDC, kicks up their generator, and we have it frequently for a few minutes at a time. Are you switching power from one substation to another, or are we being affected by...
So you're saying when their generator kicks on, you get fed power?
When the generator kicks on at the EDC, that's when we have a power outage.
Oh, okay. Well, that could be an issue related to some sort of a surge or some sort of connection with the way that we're connected to them or their generator's connected to us, not to point fingers. And we would have to look into that specifically, but I'm so glad you brought that to our attention. I can't
So
give you an
you're
answer on
saying
that. That's a good...
that you would have power, EDC
No.
kicks on their generator.
Well, when we lose power, the EDC kicks on their generator.
Okay.
Okay, so that you and EDC, you're just saying that you and EDC must be on the same line then?
Yeah,
Okay.
they are.
All right.
So it's not a cause and effect?
Okay.
It's just that you're
No.
both,
Thank you
you're
for
both on
clarifying
the same
that.
line?
Okay.
And I didn't know what would be causing that.
The power outages, it could be a number of things. Could be, we could pull the outage history for both you and the EDC, and I'll let you know specifically, but...
Wasn't
my guess would
there
be-
I think in the last 4 months, wasn't there a car accident or one of those poles went down, like for Greater Crossroads?
May have, I'm not sure.
I thought that was one of the, I thought.
We will pull the outage history and get back to you, sir, with an answer. Right, sir?
One, 3-4 court.
3-4.
Okay. And are you having momentary outages, or is it?
We've had some momentary outages in the past.
Okay.
From half an hour to 1 hour at a time, but it was winter time in February that caused the biggest issue, and that was my concern.
That's not momentary, that's a full-blown outage, so, yeah.
Remember when part of this, part of this train station lost power?
Yes.
That was a, I think that was, I think in February there was, I
The
think there
truck
was a,
that took a line down.
no, that was the,
The fire?
that was the 287 one.
Yes.
There was a fire on a pole-mounted transformer.
Tree hit it, and then they had
That's right,
fire.
the tree hit the pole and may have knocked down the pole. I think
Right.
part of this train station went out. I think that was created across.
When I was your liaison, I knew those outages like the back of my hand. Now that I'm in trees, I don't, that Carol will learn that very quickly, that she'll know all that stuff very well, so.
Jeff, Jackie's going first.
The next of the J's.
Number 3?
Number 3.
Rob, nice meeting you, I'm Jackie Rayburn.
Oh, yes, we've exchanged emails many times. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. These are all my notes from back in March of 18, all the way until you introduced me
Did we get those
to
switches
Tom.
repaired for you?
You most certainly
Okay,
did.
there you go.
Most certainly did.
Okay.
If Tom were here, I'd be asking him,
Jack, can you get you just a little closer to the mic?
if Tom were here,
Yes.
I'd be asking him if he had gotten an answer to a question that we asked him in May,
Okay.
mid-May. And that was, I know that you said that it's the aesthetics that they can't address, but there are a lot of them that are a mess. He was going to try to find out if there would be a way for, like, the property managers in the hills to address the actual transformer boxes themselves that were in total disrepair, not suggesting that we tape or whatever, but the one that's like completely faded out. Is there, he was going to try to find out if there was some kind of colored paint that you guys would be agreeable to us using, or?
Yeah, we have a utility green paint that we have, it's a spray paint that we sometimes use to touch up and to paint over boxes. For liability reasons, we don't want other people painting our boxes. However, there are lots, well, I'll leave it at that. We don't want other people painting our boxes.
Okay.
But again, it goes back to the aesthetic issue. We have tried and we will continue to try to get our line shop to come out and make those things look nicer, because I agree, it's an eyesore, and for us, it's our brand. So we understand that does not serve us well. We need to make that look better.
Right. So you'll get back to us with the color paint that
You see how,
you could use?
I was very successful in getting the actual equipment fixed. I've been less successful in getting them made pretty, but I will continue to try.
Five transformers in less than a year is very good work.
Yes.
And then I was thinking well, I'm not going to go there because you're going to work with us, and so I'm not going to say that we should make a list of the ones that are the worst, because you're going to be able to address them all, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well done, Jackie.
Right?
We gotta fight for the microphone.
No, Jeff, you might as well take a seat in the front row.
Exactly.
This one real quick. Appreciate everything you guys have done. I'm Jeff Leonard, 9 West Scott Road, in Wynwood, and I'm also the president of Hills Village North, along with Jackie, who's on my board with me. I really appreciate everything you're doing, and I agree with her that our association, if we need to, will kick in, and if you guys need us to make some of these things look nicer. One thing I wanted to mention too, along with what Rich Costa was asking, initially, when you guys do the work on the ramp from 287, it's not just the power outages that you need to be concerned with, but the road closure. Even if you take out that one lane, please work with Chief Rock and the police in the town to give people notice, because when that ramp is closed, the whole community is snarled.
Yeah, we need a DOT permit, and we also, I'm sure we'll need police flagging and police marking, and we pay for that, so that's not on the taxpayers' time, it's on ours. So yes, all that coordination should and will happen.
During rush hour, because, that one little ramp is our only access to 3 of the 4 interstates.
I know.
So that's just like, last time it happened, people, it took me an hour to get to work, when it's normally at 15 minutes, so that's all I'm saying.
We will do our best.
Keep that in mind.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
Again, I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
We'll keep in contact.
Thanks.
That's all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Mayor.
John Forte, 5 Quailbrook Court. I'm the fifth unmentioned J.
Another
J.
There's another J.
5 J's. You mentioned before,
Yes.
when you gave your presentation about the thermal scans,
Yes,
and they're done every 4 years.
correct.
Would you consider that short-term preventive maintenance or long-term preventive maintenance?
It's not maintenance at all because we're not necessarily fixing anything, we're inspecting it. So I would call it I would call it long-term and short-term inspections. It's not, maintenance would be what we do after that in response to that.
Well, 4
So-
years seems like a long time in between inspections. Now, is this everything that's above ground?
No, there's also an underground inspection cycle that's in this presentation. The underground is 5 years, and the overhead thermography is 4 years.
And that's throughout the whole state, through the hills and so forth?
Yes,
So
that's...
every 4 years,
We look at this,
you're going to look at all of the items?
yes.
That's-
Once every 4 years, we look at every
Seems like-
linear mile of circuit.
In my opinion, it seems like kind of a large span time-wise.
Well, fair enough, and that's also why we think it's sufficient, we think it does the job, but we also look at the reliability numbers to capture incidents that we may not capture with the regional inspection program. So that's why we are looking at those reliability numbers every week, every month. We have an engineering team that just does nothing but look at that data, crunch the numbers, and when they find things that are not what we want them to be, we go out and do it above and beyond a second time or a third time. So, yeah, fair comment, but yes.
I can understand that, but like if you get a reading in 2019 and they're not going to go out until 2030 unless you get a failure.
Right.
And then you're going to go out and address it. Second thing, go ahead.
No, that's a fair criticism. Bear in mind that every time you add another, you shorten the duration of an inspection or shorten the duration of a tree trimming program, that adds to the cost that the ratepayers pay. So trying to find the balance between doing necessary inspections and also keeping electricity rates at a reasonable price, that's sort of the natural tension that we work with the BPU and rate council to make sure that we meet reliability concerns, but also not overcharge our customers. So it's a tension, and it's a fair criticism. We think we're doing it right, but I understand why we think we should do it more often.
And at the last meeting, we discussed PTs and various equipment and lifespans and so forth. Basically, the rationale is operated until it fails.
No, operate for a reason, no, because the transformers we replaced were not failing, but they were reaching the end of their usable life, and we saw signs of fatigue that made us decide we needed to replace them. Some transformers will last longer than you and me. A transformer has no movable parts. It is simply coils in vegetable oil now. It used to be a more poisonous oil, but in vegetable oil, yes, PCBs, and it just sits there forever. And some transformers will last 100 or more years. Some transformers will last 10. So, no, it is not simply wait until it fails. That's why we do thermal inspections, why we do other things. It is, we have a life expectancy for our devices. We inspect them regularly, and when they approach that life expectancy, if we find signs of fatigue that warrants replacement, we replace them.
Most of the PTs in the hills are over 30 years old.
Yes.
And the fact that you brought up the rust being aesthetically unpleasing, as far as I'm concerned, if the exterior is rusted, what's the condition of the interior?
Yeah,
Now, if you're not going around opening them up and looking at the physical insides, paint is not going to do really anything as far as PM.
That's a fair question, and we do open them up and look at them, which is why we need the clearances around the doors so we can look at them, inspect them, which is also why the 5 that got replaced, because we looked at them and said, yeah, you know what, this is more than aesthetics now, it could become a reliability issue, let's replace these, and we did.
Now, we have, I don't know how many we have in the hills, right? I'm just concerned about the hills.
Yep.
Hundreds of them.
Sure. I don't know if it's hundreds, but
Is
it's
there
lots.
any kind of inspection schedule?
Yes.
That once a month, 15 of them are inspected and opened and looked at?
It's not once a month, but there is a regular maintenance schedule. I don't know what it is, but we will certainly find out, and we will let the governing body know, and Carol can get back to you and let you know.
Okay.
That's a fair question. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted, this is my husband, John. And just to make a point, we got married 4 years ago, and he lives in
Long Meadow for 23 years without a power outage. And he lived up time and has gone through all the aggravation. And he was 3 blocks from me, lived 3 blocks from me. So 3 blocks away, no power outages ever. Obviously, I should have moved to Long Meadow.
Yes.
The point is, it's very obvious and, kind of living proof that when our power goes out, he sits there and says it's never happened in Long Meadow. So just making a point.
Fair enough.
But now it does happen in Long Meadow because they're on our house.
Any more questions for JCP&L? Any other? Chris?
Scroll 48 Heatherwood, no J's or 48 Heatherwood. Everyone else can ask all the questions. I just have one. How do we report an outage after the fact? So I come home, my lights been blinking, and I want to make sure it meets the report.
You can call 88 Lights and say that today I came home and my power had been out during the day. We would make a record of that notification. It goes onto your account. We see it. That's how you would do it, like you would any other outage. Okay? Fair question.
Or text or go on.
Or text it, yes. Or go online. Exactly. Thank you.
Rob, Carol, question for you.
Sure.
Let's talk technical now. We've done a bunch of stuff. We're going to do more stuff. We should see some gains from all the activity. How do we know we're making progress, and how do we measure that progress going forward?
Because Carol will come back to the governing body, as area managers have done for many, many years, and report on the reliability data. We will show you reliability as it was 5 years ago, as it was today, as it is in 3 months, in a year, in 2 years, for as long as Carol and all of you are together. That is the job that we do. And I'm glad it'll be Carol and not me. So this is fine. But that's the way we.
So it's a safety reliability scorecard.
Correct. We look at the SCADA numbers, which is the average amount of time a customer is without power during a year. We look at safety, which is the number of outages a customer experiences, frequency, and KD, which is the average duration of an interruption during a year. Those are the 3 metrics we use. And Carol can come back and report on those numbers on a regular basis.
I think that's what we need to see, because then we can do a baseline and a comparison and see whether or not all the work that you're doing is actually helping or it hasn't impacted the customers. And you're obviously going to hear from the customers as well if it hasn't done any good.
Yeah, and believe me, we do the same thing. We're spending $100 million on reliability projects. We know exactly what the reliability is today. We will measure it following these projects, and we hope that it makes a big improvement. We would love nothing better than to be able to boast about our work improving reliability for customers.
Right. So, one of the things, and this may be, I'm not sure if this is going to be the last comment or not, but is the, I think some of you have heard me say this enough, the what next, right?
Right.
So we put the 4 J's and with another fifth J just got added. This shouldn't be the end, right? So we want to keep that subcommittee going, meeting with Renee and Colin, and Renee and Colin liaising with Carol. So I just want to make sure that you guys are still prepared to keep having these meetings, right? Okay. So I just want to make sure, and to that end, is there another meeting coming up? Is there something else? When do you guys intend on reconvening? Certainly with the reps from Wood Duck.
In terms of the date yet, but sometime this summer, I think we ought to, put our heads together and have an update, maybe sometime in July. I think that I'll discuss it with my, colleagues and with Colin and Renee, if they just be here and take the books.
We can invite Carol.
Yeah.
I would like that. Yeah, well, it's
Done.
Okay.
Make it happen.
And so just before we all leave, just want to make sure that there's an action plan from our end, whether the Township Committee and the community itself. So
Maybe like sometime in August. Jeff, do you think sometime in August?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be
Do an
So
August meeting with us too, and Carol and HEMA.
Yep. So we'll get that on the schedule, we'll get that calendared, we'll communicate, work with them, figure out a good date for everybody.
Okay.
All right?
Before we, one more, come back up.
I just want to ask, Rob, do you feel confident you'll have fixed the 2 poles by 287 before that next meeting in August?
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's easy.
Okay. Rob, Carol, thank you very much. Carol, we welcome you to Bedminster. And thank you all for coming out here tonight. Why don't we take a brief recess? We will continue with the meeting. You guys are all welcome to stay. It is 8:37. We are back from our brief adjournment after the JCP&L presentation. So once again, thank you to the JCP&L reps, and thank you to the 5Js, who are the community representatives, and speaking on behalf of the folks from Wood Duck. Judy will continue with the meeting, which brings us to Administrator's Report.
Real quick, I just wanted to piggyback on what Mrs. Stevenson commented on. The fourth grade was here today. We probably had, 60 fourth graders, a number of teachers and parents. The kids did their presentation first, and I have to say, they blew our presentation out of the water. The kids did a great job. They have a website and really know a lot about Bedminster, so it was
Judy,
a lot of fun.
On that, one of the teachers sent around the Google Docs with all these creations that the kids put together, so we're going to ask the teacher if we have permission to send that over to Robin for JVH to post on the site, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's really nice.
A lot of it was about Jacobus Vanderveer and the Cantonment site, and
Sean Blinn did a great job. Robin, Ray, and Sean.
We had fun, but I'm saying, I think the kids knew way more than we did.
But Sean said, I just have 30 minutes. I know the kids are going I just have 30 minutes to go through, and we were like, 30 minutes? So did they, I had to go before it ended.
They loved him.
Good.
Yeah, it was great.
And I also do want to give, just on that one, on one note, special thanks to Dr. Felicia Nace, who, when I first sort of pushed each of the committees to put programs together and work with, folks from the communities or the school, Felicia really brought it to Wendy, and then at that point, Felicia and Wendy from Historic Pres really brought it out, and Sean got involved, and it was great to see that whole committee work together to pull this off. So that was great.
I think this is going to become an annual event.
That's great, and really, to some extent, it sets the model for the other boards and the other committees. Well, certainly environmental is already doing it, but it gives a model for these other boards that sit there and, sit up at the dais and hear applications and make rulings and recommendations, then move on. But now this is a way to bring those boards right to tie them back into the community. So, great job to the Historic Pres.
It was a nice day. 2019 tax bills are not ready yet. We don't have a budget that's been approved yet by the state. Our budget is fine, but the state budget has not been finalized. So once that's done, we hope to have municipal tax bills out by mid-July. Also, just a reminder, we have an event at AT&T. I don't think everyone is going, but I know Mr. Hickey's going, Mr. Stevens is going, the mayor's going, and I'm going. 5 o'clock Friday, if you need...
Wednesday.
5 o'clock Wednesday. If you need any details on where to go when you come in, I think they were sent out today. So just a reminder about that. And I did get, for the Essex horse trials, I got a request today if our electronic sign could be used for that event. So I told them I would mention it. So. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to discussion on introduced ordinances scheduled for public hearing. We do not have any. Introduction of ordinances, we do have one ordinance to introduce, which is ordinance 2019-008. This is an ordinance authorizes appropriating $5,000 for various office equipment for the police department in Bedminster Township. The public hearing for this ordinance is scheduled for July 1, 2019 at 7 p.m. We have a motion to approve the introduction of ordinance 2019-008.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye, and questions and comments for July 1?
What's the equipment we're looking for?
So, at the end of last year, we did a new copy machine here for administration. It was a larger, does everything you can possibly think of type of copy machine, much more than this. This is a much smaller machine for the police department. Copier, scanner, printer, all in one kind of copy. So, it's yet to be determined the price, but it'll be no more than.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to public hearing of ordinances, we have none. Consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. If there are no questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
And this is just we did a resolution at the last meeting, having an acting fire official, and it was noted there was no hourly rate listed, so we had to crack and put the hourly rate in. So it's just an amendment, so that was the only adjustment. So I need a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci? Aye. Ms. Moreski? Aye. Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Okay.
So we do have a series of resolutions coming up. These are authorized renewal of liquor licenses. So let's start with the first one, which is Resolution 2019-067. This resolution authorizes the renewal of Fiddler's Elbow Country Club liquor license for the period of July 1, 2019 until June 30, 2020. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I need a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Okay.
Next is Resolution 2019-068. This resolution authorizes the renewal of Delicious Heights Enterprises Corp. liquor license for the period of July 1, 2019 until June 30, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Again, roll call. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Next resolution is Resolution 2019-069. This resolution authorizes the renewal of Grateful Spirits, Inc. liquor license for the period of July 1, 2019 until June 30, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Grateful Spirits
It's
is Colonial Liquor.
Colonial
Yeah,
Liquors,
okay.
yes.
Just want to make sure.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Resolution 2019-070. This resolution authorizes the renewal of Cold Spring Liquor Corp. liquor license for the period of July 1, 2019 until June 30, 2020. Cold Spring Liquor Corp.
That would be Pluckman.
Pluckman.
Pluckman Inn.
So Pluckman Inn and the wine store that goes with it.
Yes.
I'll make that
Just
motion.
by the way, the police department did a full investigation of each of these applications prior to this submission. They also have to show proof of all their tax clearance certificates have been approved by the state, and then there is the municipal fee and the state fee, all have to be
All
paid
been
ahead of
paid.
time. That's all been done.
And the Fiddler's license is not a plenary license.
So, the distribution license is Colonial Liquors. The plenary retail, which are the restaurant licenses, are Delicious Heights and Pluckman Inn. And then Fiddler's Elbow is what's called a club license.
Right.
It's all based around the club and golf.
Right.
I'll make the motion for 2019-70.
Second.
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Next resolution is 2019-072. This resolution authorizes the township to purchase one 2020 International dump truck from Bucks County International in the amount not to exceed $136,551. John? You getting a dump truck?
Yes, I am. So this is just a formality in the process. We approved in the budget $75,000 in the capital improvement. Had $75,000 from last year, which gives me enough to purchase this vehicle. And it is, it's more of a best practices that the township realizes it through a resolution that we're purchasing this equipment at this point in time.
Is this replacing or
This is
adding?
replacing I forget the year, I apologize. It's replacing a unit, so once we get the unit, then we'll put it in for auction.
And the unit that it is replacing, we still have, or is that being...
Ones we still have that's currently in use.
And that's going to be traded in, or that's going to be
It's
sold?
going to be probably auctioned off.
Auctioned off?
We don't trade anything in anymore.
Okay.
What are the proceeds for the auction? Do they go to general, or do they go to...
Miscellaneous revenue.
Okay.
Miscellaneous revenue. CFO, very happy when we sell a piece of equipment.
Any other questions or comments for John?
No.
If not, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski. Aye. Mayor Jacobs.
Aye. Next resolution is 2019-073. This resolution authorizes the hiring of a temporary employee, or actually employees, in the tax office to assist with preparation and mailing of tax bills. Judy?
So we have not identified who these individuals will be. They're usually high school kids all for the summer. They pay $10 an hour. They come in for 2 days during the week, and they fold and stuff tax bills and get pizza for lunch. So we haven't identified who they are yet, but it will be soon.
Any
Pizza for
questions?
lunch. I'll do it.
Pizza?
What kind of pizza?
What kind of pizza?
Can we do it now?
What kind of tax bills are these? Because aren't we sending out this next set? They're tax bills that we generate during the year?
So these are the municipal tax bills that
Come in 4 parts.
they come in 4 parts. They go out in July. They're usually due August.
And it's an
Oh.
actual for two quarters and an estimated for 2 quarters?
Correct.
Sounds like a 4-piece.
Okay.
So some people have their mortgage paid through their bank, through their mortgage company, and your taxes are paid through that as well. But a lot of people pay them separately, so everyone gets a copy. You might get an extra copy just to have for your records.
Okay.
If no more questions, then we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-073.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thanks.
So Judy, I noticed that we're going from 2019-73 to 2019-75.
There's-
Oh, that's right, that's right. We have
7-4,
7-4 we come back
is
to.
something we'll be
Right.
discussing in the
Okay,
executive session.
that's right. So next is Resolution 2019-075. This resolution amends Resolution 2019-065, authorizing the following individuals to be employed as seasonal employees for the rec department, and those 3 individuals are listed below.
They were listed on a previous resolution as just to be determined, and they have now been interviewed and
They've not been determined.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's any questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan, then we have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Which brings us to the approval of bill list. I have a motion to approve the bill list pending review of individual invoices.
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll call, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci.
Aye.
Ms. Moreski.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Discussion items. Does any Township Committee member have any item that they would like to open for discussion?
I thought I'd talk about PSE&G a little bit.
You want to talk about PSE&G?
No, it was very good.
That would be
they
for
came in.
gas.
That was good.
New business. Any committee members have anything they want to put on the agenda, or actually for discussion for new business?
Mayor, I'll be meeting with a representative from the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. You're invited to join. The meeting's Wednesday at 9:30. And they will be talking to us about a state program that provides interest-free loans of up to $10,000 for first-time home buyers. The money is supposed to defray costs of down payment and closing costs, and I thought that was an
That's great.
interesting opportunity for some of our residents. So I'm going to investigate that. We'll investigate that. And
That's great.
see
I won't be
how
able to
we
make the Wednesday meeting,
Okay.
so Renee, that's all you?
go. Okay, and Judy, can I get a room for 9:30 on Wednesday?
9:30 on Wednesday.
and I'll
Very
report
good.
back and let everybody know.
Great, that's great. Anything else?
Colin and I are going to meet with John about cleaning up Knox Park, if we can,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll let you know what we come up with.
Okay, great.
And that's in response to a note from a homeowner, so just to let you know.
Right, right. Okay, good. Old business, short-term rentals. So I do note that Jersey City is still deciding, I think there's two competing ordinances that Jersey City is looking at right now on short-term rentals. I'm just sort of monitoring this on my own. John, I'm not sure if you've seen anything statewide or any other municipalities.
Nothing there.
Moving forward. Doug? you?
Nothing, no.
All right, so we'll just keep short-term rentals on the list. Judy, are you aware of any further activity by
For
enforcement?
now, Actually,
Okay,
I don't have anything
well,
currently going on.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. Engine braking, Colin.
No update, Mayor, we'll just keep an eye on that.
Okay, Pluckerman Park.
There have been a number of inspections and meetings with the management. There have also been a number of violations issued. We're monitoring that very closely.
Actually, summonses at this point as a result of the failure of the owners to comply with prior UCC
Mr.
violations.
Guardo met with
notices
construction and
issued by
zoning. There were a
Mr.
number of
Rogers.
violations identified. The court, I believe, sent those summonses out, both certified mail and regular mail, at the end of last week, Thursday or Friday.
Great.
My
John, can you...
understanding is there's a municipal court date in June already.
So, John, can you explain the difference between the enforcement office issuing the fines versus what is going on with the court sending out a summons?
Under the Uniform Construction Code, which is a state statute in New Jersey, the construction official has the ability to issue violation notices, essentially saying, okay, you've not properly installed a handicap ramp. There's a sewer line that doesn't meet code. There is a process under which the owner or person who the violation is issued to can appeal the violation notice. That would then go to the County Construction Board of Appeals in Somerville, and then they would adjudicate after a hearing as to whether there were merits. In this instance, the owner never appealed the notices, so it never reached a hearing. At a certain point in time, if there is no action taking, the construction code official has the ability essentially then to say, issue summonses. It then goes to a municipal court judge. There's a hearing, and the judge then has the ability to, impose fines and other penalties upon the owners, which can then eventually be collected through the Penalty Enforcement Act. So I had met with Mr. Rogers, a construction code official, and we decided that because there was a lack of diligence in attempting to comply with some of these, that perhaps a more stringent measure was necessitated, and so we've essentially moved to step 2, which is they're going to have to appear before Judge House.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, John. Thank you for that explanation. The last old business item is JCP&L outages, which I think we've already covered adequately. So that brings us to public comments. This is the second round for public comment. We still have a member of the public waiting here.
You must have just missed the
You must have just missed the first one. That was a couple hours ago. So please come on back up.
Actually, the JCP&L was interesting.
Good.
Doug Brown, 1851 Black River Road, and it is spring coming into summer again, so just here to request greater police presence for the speeding on Black River Road. It's slowed down a little bit during the winter. People tend to be a little more careful, but with the warm weather, it's just back to its Le Mans. So on the Saturday.
Are you seeing the bicyclists out there as well? Are the cars, do the cars slow down for the bicyclists at all?
Well, the question.
And the bicyclists are their own hazard on the...
And do the bicyclists slow down for the cars? They're kind of ripping it over 25 themselves. Do they slow? Not really.
No.
So,
And
no, I was going to say, didn't we during budget session, we put together some funding to put one of those signs out, a flashing sign right out where you are. We were debating which side of the street needed it more, but, sort of a flashing sign, this is your speed. So, we are trying to do something out there to control the speed in addition to...
And actually, I got a mailer that I just earlier gave to, we gave it to you to give it to the chief. So it's a mailer for one of those companies that sells those signs.
Yeah.
And they're offering what, 2 for 1, 3 for 2, 5 for 6, something along those lines, to buy some of the signs. So
solar powered and, that's the whole idea, is to get, the flashing, this is your speed, just so that people are aware of what's going on.
Yeah, but then it's interesting because you go to the ones that just do that, then to the ones that actually do recording, so it really runs the gamut of the pricing.
Oh, yeah. But we are aware of the issue that has been raised out there, so we're trying to get some speed control out there. It's on a 24/7 basis, so we don't just depend on an officer sitting there.
would be appreciated. There's a pretty decent one-car accident last Monday, literally right in front of my house. It was northbound, coming around the curve. I don't know how the guy did it. Speed, I'm sure, was part of it. He just continued his curve right on into the ditch, took out the 25-mile-an-hour sign.
So across the street from you?
Literally, house happened right there.
It's like
20
the,
feet from the front steps,
Yeah,
is the house. Old
Sure.
house, just right on the road.
Right.
Took out speed limit sign, took out my mailbox, and, it's a deep drainage ditch. There's no way the guy was going anywhere close to 25 to be able to make as long of a plow through the ditch as he did with force. So, it is I know I was here quite a few times last year complaining about it, but it's a dangerous.
Any injuries out there?
They called an ambulance. I think he banged his head.
Okay.
Nothing serious.
Do you know if there was a police report filed for that?
There was, absolutely.
There was?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had to make a claim on it.
Oh, you make, okay. Oh, right. Took down your mailbox.
Right. And also, just related to that, Pottersville Fire Department responded to, how would I go about getting the ruts that the large truck made in my front yard when they pulled in the front yard? And why they did that?
Oh, boy.
Double dually, right through the soft.
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you.
What happened? It left rust?
No,
ruts.
Yeah,
Okay,
from the
sorry.
big, it wasn't just
Yes.
small truck.
Tire ruts.
Yeah,
Yes.
On the dually and
To repair those, what do you need to do? Fill those and then seed
fill
them?
and seed it.
Fill and seed?
Put it in through your insurance carrier. Put it, claim it.
Yeah.
Make the accident was the cause of it, so.
That's a good idea.
That,
Yeah.
that has its ups and downs, yeah.
You got a claim going with your,
you got a claim
going with your carrier for the damage?
For the
mailbox.
For the mailbox.
Yeah, and so it should be obviously no fault to you, right? You're the victim there. See if you can put it in and they can tag it on and they go back to the culprit. And his carrier then would pick up the difference. That should be covered.
Thank you, Attorney Matz.
What I do.
Well played, John.
Your
Well played.
associate, Mr. Stevenson,
I've done a lot of insurance stuff.
Yeah, that should be covered, though. That would be property damage to you.
All right. That was it. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move to Township Committee comments. Mr. Stevenson.
No comments.
No comments, Mayor.
No comments, Mayor, thank you.
Just thank you from myself for JCP&L and all our neighbors showing up and being very hospitable and asking good questions today.
No, it was great turnout. I did not anticipate as many folks coming out for the second meeting, but I think we had as really an equally robust discussion, a little more organized, and JCPenney was certainly prepared for this, so that was great. Kudos to all of them. There are two comments I do want to mention, and we've talked about the farmers market being a community gathering and also a place if anyone wants to find a township representative and chew their ear. That's certainly a great opportunity. So there were a number of folks who came up to me Saturday and mentioned that they had just moved to town and how pleased they were to move to Bedminster. And by the way, this is through, there were some folks who moved to Pottersville, some folks who moved into the lower hills, upper hills, just talking about how happy they were to be in Bedminster and how pleased they were to call Bedminster home. And there was one couple, which was a same-sex couple, and had just recently moved to Bedminster, and they wanted to tell me how comfortable they felt in Bedminster, noting the diversity and inclusivity that they've felt since moving to town, and they just wanted to convey that. And I said, well, that's just not a function of the Township Committee, but also staff and really our residents. But they were very effusive, and I just want to let everyone know that that's how people are feeling about moving to Bedminster, and that was really nice to hear.
It is nice.
We do have an executive session, and we may be taking action following that executive session. Having said that, may we have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll be back hopefully shortly.
Judy, were these yours? Did you want?
Okay, we're back on.
We are back on. It is 10:34. We are back from executive session. We do have one resolution that is pending. That is Resolution 2019-074, which is a resolution appointing Joe Haggerty as Deputy Zoning Official at the compensation on an annual basis for the additional title of $5,200 a year to be prorated for his term. Do we have a resolution, I'm sorry, do we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-074?
So moved.
Is that seconded on a 90-day basis, trial basis, or is that a?
We're doing this, so let's talk about that. So are we doing this on a 90-day basis or approving it for?
That it be a probationary 90-day period to start. This is a new position,
So moved as a 90-day probation trial period.
which is something we would normally do with any new appointment.
Second.
So that's standard,
I second that.
but just let's enforce it.
So the resolution that's pending doesn't make that distinction for 90
No, it
days?
doesn't have to. It's in the personnel policy.
Okay, so it's in there, so it's already embedded in there?
We're just mentioning that is part of what we do.
Okay.
It's already part of the personnel policy. Okay.
So you're satisfied with the 90 days? You're
Yes.
satisfied with the 90 days?
Yes, Mayor.
So, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mrs. Santucci? Aye. Mr. Marewski? Aye. Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
The resolution carries, and with that, we have a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Who is the one in town who...
Judy.
Oh, I have to ask.
Do you have no?